Well, guys, welcome back to another video on MMAUnhinged. Today we're joined by Oscar once again on the podcast, and we're talking about some fights. We've got a great fight this weekend, UFC 262 on Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler for the UFC, the vacant UFC lightweight championship of the world. Oscar, how's it going?
It's going excellent. This card is very special because all these matchups are going to be competitive, to be honest. This is the first time since UFC 211 that there's only one 2-1 favorite on the card in Gina Mazzani. So we're going to see very competitive and close fights. And let's not forget, the fans are back again.
Yeah, sold out in a matter of moments. But that was when Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz is on the card. They probably lost a bit of a little bit of ticket sales probably there, but you know, we've still got a cracker co-main event and main event. So we're in for a treat this weekend. The good card all around. And Roundhouse Rance is in the building. He put, hey, how's it going, Roundhouse? Glad to have you joined by here today. Me and Oscar about to break down this UFC 262 card. So we're starting off at the top of the bill, shall we, Oscar?
Absolutely, yeah. This is a real lightweight showcase. Who do you think will become the undisputed champion after Khabib has left the division?
Without doubt, probably the most confident pick on this card. It has to be Michael Chandler. Honestly, I have so much belief in this man. I know Charles Oliveira has that, you know, that Muay Thai, big long range striking in his locker, but and obviously that, you know, that jiu-jitsu is incredible. We know how great that is. The most submissions in UFC history at the moment, holds that record. If Chandler does let it go to the ground, which I think it will go to the ground at some point in the fight, but I think the wrestling, the style of Chandler, he said it in the up and coming when the fight was leading up to the fight. He said, "I've been fighting these guys my whole life. I've been working a type of wrestling where I can avoid these submissions attacks. I fought guys like Brent Primus, was it Goichi Haruyumichi from Bellator. So he's fought some really good BJJ guys, but not on the level of Charles Oliveira, but I still think he'll win this fight. I think we'll see a KO very early in round number 1, number 2. I think Chandler is the perfect opportunity to win the belt. DP wants that Conor fight. Justin Gaethje wasn't in the title picture. This is the perfect moment for Chandler to win the belt, and I think he does so Saturday.
I 100% agree with you. Michael Chandler has the advantage in speed and in power. If you have those two things, you could win most fights, to be honest. And Charles Oliveira is becoming more of a threat on the feet these days. If you look at his striking, it's not traditional, but he does have his fundamentals down. He's going to be able to surprise a lot of people on the feet. And the Kevin Lee fight, that was a real eye-opener because I thought Kevin Lee was going to dominate the exchanges on the feet, but that was not the case. It was a very back-and-forth fight. So here against Michael Chandler, he's got a really tough fight ahead of him because Michael Chandler has that one-hitter quitter that's going to put his lights out in round 2. Chandler will definitely look to wrestle because he's going to be confident. He's never been submitted before, and he works with Gilbert and Herbert Burns down in Sanford MMA. He's got his jiu-jitsu game down. But if Charles Oliveira can be the first one to do it, I'll give all props to him, but I don't think this will be the time. Michael Chandler has got a short neck and he's got short limbs, so it's going to be hard to get a hold of him. And on the feet, Chandler closes the distance very effectively. Everybody said the Dan Hooker fight was probably the worst matchup for him on the entire roster. And what does he do? He knocks him out in under 3 minutes, just like he's done to his past 3 opponents before that. So Michael Chandler is on a streak here, and it will not stop here. Do you think Charles Oliveira's win streak is slightly overrated?
If you look at the guys he's fought in that 85 win streak, I think there were the fights that are favorable to him. Ones that fights that he should have fought. Other than Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson, they were the real names that maybe could have caused some trouble with him. If you look at the 8-fight win streak, again, we've got Clay Guido, Christian Jagos, Jim Miller, David Timor, Nick Lentz, Jared Gordon, then Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson. Other than that, it was Paul Felder. He lost to Paul Felder ground and pound. Ricardo Lamos, Anthony Pettis, and that Max Holloway, that famous, the neck injury / shoulder injury where he ended the fight for himself. But if you look at that 8-fight win streak, it's definitely favorable fights. I feel like fights that he should have won, and he did win. But now he comes in against a Michael Chandler. But we when going into the Tony Ferguson fight, we all thought that Charles Oliveira could lose against that one. Tony Ferguson will bounce back. And he shut the lights out. Well, not did shut the lights out, but he shut everybody down. Proved everybody wrong. That Charles Oliveira is legit now. He's correct their mistakes. He's better back. He's better than ever. And if he goes in there and he pulls out the win, it'll be a huge upset in my opinion. Even though he is the favorite, I fully back Michael Chandler to win this fight.
I do as well, because Michael Chandler, he closes the distance in a way that not a lot of guys can for his size. We know Charles Oliveira will be enjoying a 3-inch reach advantage and a 2-inch height advantage. He fights very tall, but I know Michael Chandler has studied him very well. In fact, he's mentioned in many interviews that Charles has quit in him. He 100% has quit in him. That's something you really can't change. In the Paul Felder fight, once he couldn't get in a submission in the first round, he kind of quit on himself there. When he got taken down by Paul Felder and couldn't submit him, he really decided that it was just not going to be his night. And he started taking huge elbows, and he did get stopped with strikes, but he actually tapped Paul Felder's shoulder while he was landing those elbows. So this guy just does not react well to getting hit. He got knocked out by Cub Swanson in 2 minutes, but that was at featherweight. The lightweight version of Charles Oliveira is much better. I don't know how he ever made featherweight, but let's be honest here. Michael Chandler will hit him very hard, and he's not going to like it at all. He's not a good nail. That's one thing about Charles Oliveira. He can bully these guys outside of the top 15 like Jared Gordon, Christos Jagos. He can definitely do terrible things to them. And old Clay Guida and Jim Miller. He can definitely beat those guys, but Michael Chandler's a multi-time Bellator lightweight champion. He's the cream of the crop, if you ask me, and I had doubts about him before the Dan Hooker fight, but after what he did to the unbelievably durable Dan Hooker, I got no doubts about him. My pick is second round knockout. After Charles Oliveira thinks he's getting taken down, he's going to fake the takedown, and he's going to get slept.
Wow, a big introduction to the podcast. Now, me and Oscar talked about there. Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. We're both going for Chandler knockouts and early. I think he's going to connect very early, very hard. And as you mentioned there, Oliveira's not going to like it. And I don't think he'll quit. I just think he's going to get put out. I think he's going to be put out unconscious and maybe just tap to strikes. But this is going to be Michael Chandler's greatest performance in his career, up to date, and then he'll call out the winner of DP versus Conor, and it's a great storyline for him. I think what Michael Chandler does well, other than his performances, he's tremendous on the mic.
Yeah, he actually already has his promo somewhat set up. He FaceTimed the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and he told him after the fight, you know what I'm going to say? To beat the man, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Hopefully Michael Chandler doesn't fumble that like me on the mic, but that's going to be one tremendous statement, and it's going to put the whole division on notice. I do think Michael Chandler got the title shot at the right time, not at the deserved time. So I think Michael Chandler's got to thank his lucky stars he's not fighting a Gaethje or a Poirier. But nonetheless, this is the right time for him to get it done against a guy who does not respond well to getting hit.
Yeah, if Chandler and Gaethje do meet down the line, I think that could be one of the best fights in the history of the UFC, because both men that, the pressure, the pace, the power, the explosiveness, then both men that produce it would just it serves a fight to be just absolute bananas, and it'd be a crazy fight. I'd love to see it, and it's literally the battle of the backflips. Who can produce that backflip better when they win the fight? But it'd be a great fight down the line. I'd love to see it. Gaethje needs to come back though, get that win, get himself back into that picture. But if Chandler does win this, I think he would definitely call out the winner of DP versus Conor.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the money fight right there. The reason Dustin is not in this fight is because he wanted the money fight against Conor. And I reckon Dustin Poirier will finish Conor McGregor again and he himself will also call out Michael Chandler. So that just makes all the sense of the world. And if those guys walk out of those fights fairly unscathed, that'll probably happen before the end of the year, and I cannot wait for that.
That is a preview episode for another day, another time. We won't get into that right now. But I do agree with you. I think Dustin Poirier does finish Conor McGregor once again. And then Conor McGregor rides off in the sunset, earned all his money, and, goes on to do bigger, better things outside the cage. But moving on to the co-main event, Tony Ferguson versus Beneil Dariush. It's an incredible fight. It's set up for some action. Who have you got?
I have Tony Ferguson. A lot of people have their jaws on the floor right now after his past two performances, but I have taken a deep dive into Beneil Dariush's career, and he's gotten knocked out twice by Edson Barbosa and Alexander Hernandez. I know that Tony Ferguson does not hit just as hard as those guys, but one thing Tony Ferguson has always had in his toolset is his cardio and his pressure. Beneil Dariush always slows down in his fights. Even in the Scott Holtzman fight, he was looking pretty slow in that second round, and he landed that spinning back fist for a Hail Mary knockout. And against Tony, you're not going to knock him out. Justin Gaethje proved that. You can hit him with everything and the kitchen sink, and he's still going to be on his feet. So Tony Ferguson will not go away. And in the Charles Oliveira fight, he also told us that he will not tap out no matter what kind of pain he's dealing with. So Tony Ferguson is an absolute madman and a savage, and I think he has just enough left in him to get a third round knockout here against Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush, you saw him at the scales earlier today. Not that great. Not that great. So when you already have chin issues to begin with and your weight cut wasn't that smooth, I'm going to have extra questions about your chin. So I'll pick Tony Ferguson here to get the knockout that he's actually predicting.
Yeah, I agree with you. Other than a knockout, I'm going to go with decision. I think Tony takes this one. It goes when it goes to the judges' scorecards. I think Beneil Dariush, he's been knocked out before against Alex Hernandez and the flying knee from Edson Barboza, but obviously Tony Ferguson doesn't possess the power than them guys have. But as you mentioned, what he does possess is that that pressure, the pace, the cardio, walking down his opponents. And as you mentioned, Beneil Dariush, he doesn't, after a round, he doesn't look as fresh, not as much pop on his power, on his punches, other than that, that Hail Mary, Scott Holtzman, the spinning back fist and when he got Dracula close hurt. He does slow down quite a bit, and he does have good BJJ, a really good BJJ, so that could pose a problem for Tony Ferguson. But Tony Ferguson is also good on the ground. But it's going to be whose BJJ is better. But I don't think it will go to the ground. I don't think Tony Ferguson will go with that game plan. I think Tony Ferguson will meet him in the middle, look for Beneil Dariush to step backwards and use that pace, use that pressure, back him up against the fence, and just land some elbows, land some straight punches. Just do what Tony Ferguson used to do. He's gone back to his old roots, got some old coaches in, trying to find what he used to do to get himself back onto that win streak. And I do believe Tony Ferguson will pull it off and he'll get back in the win streak. But Beneil Dariush is a tough customer. Tony Ferguson will not sleep on this guy 100%. Tony Ferguson will take him very, very legit, be very I can't take him very serious. Shall I say? Take him very serious. Make sure he's studied his game, study what he's going to do. I think Tony Ferguson is going to win this fight, but it's going to be a tough fight. 29-28 on scorecards.
Yeah, one thing with Beneil Dariush, he is on a 6-fight win streak, but similar to Charles Oliveira, he was not beating the cream of the crop. The best guy he fought was Diego Ferreira, a guy we already knew he could beat. So I really need to know that Beneil Dariush can beat guys that are in the top 10 before I really start going all in on the Dariush train. But Dariush, as I mentioned, he does have some durability issues and some cardio issues, and he's actually going to be at a 4.5 reach disadvantage here. So when it comes to a game of inches here at the top, that could play a real factor in this fight.
100%. It's definitely going to play a factor in this fight. As you mentioned, the reach, the size. It's going to be a very hard for Danush to get in, land these combinations, maybe and look to potentially even take Tony Ferguson down. But we'll move on to the next fight: Matt Chanel versus Rodrigo Bonnetin in the fly. They are both flyweights. They're both ranked at flyweight, but they're fighting at bantamweight. Rodrigo Bonnetin took this one on short notice. It was meant to be Alex Perez, and he missed weight. I believe he missed weight. I don't think he made weight after. But Matt Chanel, Bonnetin will step place into the octagon at 135 pounds. They are both flyweights, ranked at flyweight, but they're looking to get a win under their belt. But who have you got winning the fight?
Yeah, I have Matt Chanel winning this one, especially after we saw that Rogerio Bontorin didn't have the best weight cuts. Matt Chanel looked like a new fighter in his last fight against Tyson Nam. I really thought Tyson Nam was going to once again be a guy to put the lights out on Matt Chanel. Matt Chanel has a very suspect chin. He's been knocked out on multiple occasions. And Tyson Nam would be the kind of guy to usually do it, but that didn't happen there. And Matt Chanel's boxing really impressed me. So I think he can definitely piece up Rogerio Bontorin, who's going to want to take it to the ground and submit him. But as we know, Matt Chanel's ground game is very proven against good guys. And I do think there's a real possibility that either guy can get submitted here because it's already happened. But I think they're going to want to play somewhat safe on the ground. They're probably going to want to go position over submission. And Matt Chanel, he did prove that he can take a shot here. So at bantamweight as well, his chin will probably be better. So unless Rogerio Bontorin gets the finish here, I think Chanel's just going to have better technique and maybe possibly better cardio too. Rogerio Bontorin was looking like an absolute killer for the first 4 minutes and 50 seconds of that Kai Kara France fight. But what happens in those last 10 seconds? He gets dropped and the fight is over. So I can't trust Rogerio Bontorin, especially after a knockout loss. That was only a couple months ago.
Exactly. If you watch that fight versus Kai Kara France, he was literally a backpack for 4 minutes and 50 seconds. He was doing great, looking for submissions. Kai Kara France stayed composed, got him off his back and, finished the fight with 10 seconds to go. It was incredible. But, it shows that he is, he's very open to getting chinned. And it wasn't even that long ago. If you look at the fight, what was it like maybe 3 months ago? Yeah, 2 months and 3 days.
Yeah, that's not a good look. To be taking a fight right after that. He actually protested the stoppage, but it was very clear that the fight was over. Herb Dean had a really bad night that on that pay-per-view, and Bontorin, I don't know what he's thinking taking a fight this quick, and I don't know how on earth he missed weight when he's fighting a division up, so I don't even think he'll make weight when he returns to flyweight.
100%. If you look at, Matt Chanel, he's got that reach advantage, got that size advantage. He's taller man. He has that, 3.5 inches. That's even more. That's 5.5 inches.
I'm seeing on ESPN 3 inch. 3 inch reach advantage on ESPN.
On Tapology, they're saying Bonnetin has 67 and Matt Chanel has 72.5. So that's 5.5. I'm not too sure if that's true or not, but it seems like he has the reach advantage and he's a taller man, so that's definitely going to play a massive factor in this fight. As if you got that reach, you got that height advantage, you've always got an advantage going into the fight straight away. I think Matt Chanel gets this one, potentially even a submission in this one. I think we know Bonnetin, he's a very decorated submission artist. But Matt Chanel has held his own in the past. He has been submitted in before by Tim Elliott. So whether we can see Bonnetin, maybe implicating the same kind of strategy as Tim Elliott, we're not too sure. But Bonnetin desperately needs to get a win. Matt Chanel looks to ride the momentum at the moment and get another win under his name. But this is going to be a good fight. Definitely going to go to the scorecards, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really fun to see these two get bumped up to the main card after the Hermanson and Shabazian fight fell out. But let's move on. We have a women's flyweight fight between Caitlin Chukagian and Viviane Araujo. This fight will 100% go to the judges. There's no doubt in my mind that that these two will be able to finish, will not be able to finish each other. Kaylin Chukagian is a point fighter all the way through. She has like 11 decisions on her record. It's gonna go to the judges when she fights. And Araujo actually got a first round knockout in her debut, but since then she's been struggling to put away the higher level of competition. In the Roxanne Modafferi fight, she looked like $1,000,000. Her performance against Roxanne really surprised me because I actually picked Roxanne to win that fight. You know Roxanne, she usually gets these huge upsets. But that was not the case that night, and Araujo actually got some takedowns on her. She hurt bad on the feet, and that's the kind of performance that somebody who's on their way up in the division should have against Roxanne Modafferi. But in this case, we know Caitlin Chukagian has better jiu-jitsu, and her boxing is just more calculated, really. And that will really play a factor when it comes to these judges. But I'll be honest here, this is getting me really nervous picking this fight in Texas, because what happened last time the UFC went to Texas, you had Andrea Lee and Lauren Murphy. That fight was probably a robbery. So was Ewell and Martinez and the notorious Jones and Reyes. Those fights were very close, but I thought the case was that the judges were very off that night, and they could be here again, but I'll just pick the fighter I think is going to win. It's Caitlin Chukagian, and by decision. Do you think Viviane Araujo can move her way up here, or is Caitlin Chukagian going to be too much?
I think Caitlin Chukagian will not necessarily be too much for Viviane Araujo. I just think she'll just be outmatched in not in every department, but I feel the striking will be very, very close between the pair. But I think Chukagian would just be that little bit of extra on the feet and getting it done. But I think she has the better boxing on the ground. I think I give the edge to Caitlin Chukagian. But the striking wise, I think this is going to be a very, very close striking matchup. I think Chukagian's going to have to get in and out, landing combinations, sticking at range, getting it done there, using her jab. I think that's what she will do, and I think she'll get it done. And definitely 100%, this is going to be a decision.
Yeah, Caitlin Chukagian, I thought she was going to lose her fight after to Cynthia Calvillo after she looked really bad in the Andrade fight, but she did not, and she looked spectacular. And a fight that will be spectacular is Shane Burgos and Edson Barbosa. If you're not excited for this fight, you're not a fight fan. This fight will be guaranteed fireworks. The second I laid my eyes on this matchup, I knew that the UFC wanted to give us a treat for a main card opener, and this is exactly what it'll be. It'll be so much fun to watch. This is the real main event in my mind. Who takes this one in your mind?
In my mind, it's just such a close fight on the feet. They both love to, scrap, especially Shane Burgos. We saw in his last fight against Josh Emmett. Oh, what an incredible fight. One of the most underrated but best fights on the whole of 2020. It's a fantastic fight. But, Edson Barboza, on the other hand, you know how good his kicks are. We know how good, his striking is. This is going to play a massive, massive factor in this fight. I think Edson Barboza will keep this one at range, use his kicks, chop down the legs of Shane Burgos, and very, very, it wouldn't surprise me if this one gets stopped due to leg kicks and, Shane Burgos not be able to continue because his leg's been absolutely chopped down by Barboza. But Barboza was in a 3-fight losing streak. It was Gaethje, and then Paul Felder, and then Dan Ige, but then returned back to the winning column against Markwani Amirkhani. But I think this is a very, very close fight between the pair, but I'm edging to Edson Barboza, and I think he gets it done. This is a very good fight. Yes, both men are very powerful. The striking is very good, but I still think it might go to the judges. I'm not too sure. I think this is going to go to the judges.
Yeah, I think these guys are fairly durable. We know Edson Barbosa was having somewhat of a tough time at lightweight. He got knocked out by Justin Gaethje, and not too long after he moved to featherweight, where he had a really tough fight with Dan Ige. I actually thought Dan Ige definitely won that fight. A lot of people said it was a robbery, but Dan Ige was getting a ton of takedowns in that fight and on the feet. Edson Barbosa was kind of coasting in those rounds in later in the fight. And Barbosa did look good in that first round, but afterwards he kind of coasts. But in his last performance against Makwan Americani, he absolutely pieced him up. It was a little closer than I thought it would have been. Makwan Americani actually got a couple takedowns, and he went for some submissions. But Barbosa, I believe Barbosa is actually a black belt. But Barbosa will not keep this on the ground. This will not be on the ground. I don't think so. Shane Burgos has just as many submissions on his record as knockouts, but he's going to look for the knockout here. He's a very fan-friendly fighter, and he actually plans on getting a first-round knockout here. And I don't think it's much of a possibility because Barbosa is going to want to keep this at range. And Burgos' path to victory is to fight right in his face. Barbosa does not respond well to pressure, and that's what Burgos should do here. He's going to get in his face, and he's going to try to throw some heat, and Barbosa will probably get hit by it. Burgos is in the top 5 for most significant strikes landed per minute. He's very high output, so in the end, that should be the factor that results in Burgos getting the decision.
Wow, so I'm going Barbosa decision. You're going Burgos decision. We've gone opposite way, but it is what it is. This is a very close fight. It's a good matchup. I just can't wait to see the fight. Another fight I can't wait to see is Jacare Souza versus Andre Muniz. Jacare Souza returns after getting knocked out on his back against Kevin Holland. He's got a 3-fight losing streak. This is a must win for Jacare Souza because how the UFC been acting lately, if he loses this one, this could be the end of his UFC career.
Yeah, that is somewhat fair, which is pretty crazy to me because one of those recent losses was in Brazil to Jan Blachowicz. That was a split decision. Jan Blachowicz knocks everyone out. He couldn't knock out Jacare Souza. He did get a knockdown, but for the most part, that fight was very boring. It was just a bunch of clinching against the fence. And I actually think that's the way Jacare Souza can win this fight. Andre Muniz is very unproven. He's a very young guy. He's got a really good record, but he gets taken down in nearly every fight. And we know what Jacare is. He's one of the most decorated submission artists in the entirety of the roster. And I doubt we see a submission here from both guys. Their styles will probably cancel each other out, and Jacare does get tired. In fact, in the Holland fight, he didn't look to be in the best of shape, and maybe he could benefit from a return to 205, especially after the decision with Jan Blachowicz was close. In fact, I actually thought you could argue that he beat Jan Blachowicz. Jacare Souza does have the power in his hands and in his feet. In fact, his last couple of wins were knockouts against Derek Brunson and Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman, of course, has a very doesn't have the best of chins. Muniz has actually gotten knocked out 4 times, so is that a possibility? Yes, it is. But Muniz will enjoy a 6-inch reach advantage here, so he'll probably stay away from Jacare. But the only reason I would think of picking Muniz here is because of the age for Jacare and his pretty bad cardio, but Muniz kind of slows down too, so it's a hard one to pick, which is why it's very close in the odds, but I'll side with Jacare here just because he's got the experience and he doesn't mind a boring fight if you watch the Jan Blachowicz fight.
Exactly. I'm going to go with Jacare too. I think it's going to be a submission. I think he gets this one to the ground early. As you mentioned, Andre Muniz always getting taken down in his fight. And I think, if you're getting taken down by Jacare, one of the most decorated BJJ practitioners that we have in the mixed martial arts game at the moment. And I think he gets this one done, gets his neck, gets his arm, and gets this one done early. But we can't write on Jim Muniz. This guy is very, very hungry, very young. He's gonna be, he's gonna be in this fight 100%. But I think Jacare is gonna be too much for him on the ground, and he's gonna get it done.
Yeah, Jacare is right at the end of his career, and this is probably a must-win for him. And I think he probably gets that done by decision. Let's move on to my most confident pick of the night. We have Mike Grundy against Lando Vanetta. And there's one reason why I think Grundy wins this. He's very dominant on the ground. The only guy that really gave him problems like that was Movsar Evil who is undefeated at 13-0, I believe. So if the only guy you lose to in the grappling realm is that guy, I'm going to think very highly of you. And Grundy is also fighting a guy in Lando Vanetta, who I believe has won 2 of his last 10, I believe it is. Let me check his record real quick. Lando Vanetta has not had the best time in his last couple of bouts. Lando Vanetta, of course,
10,
told us that Tony Ferguson was human, landed a big bomb on him. Yeah, that's just not what you want to see if you're like Grundy here. And for good reason, if you're looking at his record. The last guy he beat was a guy who was way far away from the top 10, and he's moving down to featherweight for this one. And I don't know if that's a good move for him. But going down to featherweight, those guys don't hit any less harder, to be honest. And a guy like Mike Grundy, who's been wrestling his entire life, he was the son of I believe a very respectable wrestler, and he was an Olympic prospect. I think the world of Mike Grundy. He's a Darren Till teammate, and he's gonna grind out a decision here. He could possibly get a submission. One thing with Lando Vanetta is he has a very fan-friendly style. He does a lot of spinning attacks, and that's just not going to work against a guy who's very technical in Mike Grundy. So I'll go with Mike Grundy here, and it's probably going to be drama-free. He's going to get those takedowns, and quite easily. I'm very high on Mike Grundy, if you can't tell.
Yeah, I'm very high on Mike Grundy too. He's fighting out Team Carbon, as you mentioned, with Darren Till. It's probably Darren Till's main wrestling training partner because Mike Grundy is just that good at the wrestling department. If you look at his fight against Movsar Evil, yes, he did lose that fight, but he held his own against Movsar. The grappling exchanges, the scrambles was incredible. If you have free time, go watch that fight. It's one of the best fights I've seen. If you want to watch pure wrestling, it's ridiculous, the wrestling scrambles that they produced in that fight. But, Mike Grundy is a decorated wrestler, and he's coming out of England, believe it or not. A decorated wrestler fighting out of England, you're probably thinking, what is this bullshittery? This doesn't happen. But yes, it does happen. And his name is Mike Grundy. And I think this is going to be a very good showcase for Mike Grundy. I think he gets his one fight to the ground and he just dominates him up against the fence, like a Habib style kind of thing, drags him down to the ground and, just ends up in like half guard, side control, just raining down some punches and just keeping it very, very simple but effective. And he'll grind this decision out and return back to the win column. And he's a very good prospect in the 145-pound division, and he will improve once again, and against a very good win over Lando Vanetta, who's he's got that good name behind him. We know how entertaining he is. Lando Vanetta will definitely be game in this fight. He's going to come out to definitely try and win this fight, obviously. But Mike Grundy is too much for him in that wrestling department. He'll get him down early and control him very, very early.
Yeah, Lando Vanetta seems to be fighting for entertainment purposes only. And that Bobby Green fight, I just didn't see the urgency that you need to fight at this high of a level, and that's why I'm so high on Mike Grundy here. So Mike Grundy all the way. I highly suggest betting him. He's not even a big favorite here. And in the next fight, we have a pick-em fight, I believe, between Jamie Pickett and Jordan Wright.
This is probably my second most confident pick, and it's Jamie Pickett KO'd. No more to be said. Yeah,
to be honest, do you want to move on from this fight? Because it's about as simple as that. Jordan Wright has very big durability issues. He got knocked out by a submission artist and Anthony Hernandez on the Contender Series in 30 seconds. And he fights a welterweight in Joaquin Buckley. And he's on the stool slurring his words. And then he gets absolutely decapitated. That's about as far as I want to go here. Pickett got a tremendous knock on the Contender Series. Of course, he's not been knocking out the best competition, but neither has Jordan Wright here. Two guys who probably aren't UFC caliber here. I'll go with Jamie Pickett because he's more durable. He fought Tafon and Chukwi. He took everything from Tafon, and also he took it historically, get their opponents out of there. They failed to get Jamie Pickett out of there, and I'll go with Pickett by knockout here, and it's really that simple as you said.
If you just look at Jordan Wright's, record, who he's fought, it's not the greatest. It's just terrible in my opinion.
It's disgraceful.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. But yeah, I think Jamie Pickett gets this one done KO. No disrespect to Jordan Wright or Jamie Pickett, but the record, and I think Jamie Pickett gets this one done.
Yeah, also reason why I always bet against Jordan Wright is he's the Beverly Hills Ninja, and if you know where Beverly Hills is, it's a very wealthy community, and you always have to question the drive from somebody who comes from a very wealthy background. So a guy like Jamie Pickett, who definitely needs this fight to feed his family, I'll side with him. He's going to be more hungry, and he's got more power. So yeah, it's about that simple. And moving on, we have Andrea Lee against Antonina Chefchenko. This fight is going to be pretty fun as long as it's on the feet. We know Antonina Chefchenko has historically struggled against wrestlers. In the Caitlin Shukagian fight, she got absolutely dominated in that first round. And in the Roxanne Modafferi fight, she looked really terrible, got taken down 6 times. But Andrea Lee is a favorable matchup. Andrea Lee really has never came out with a wrestling heavy game plan here. And in her last couple of fights that she's lost, the reason she lost them is because of a lack of takedown defense. So I believe both of these women are going to want to stay away from the ground here. Antonina Shevchenko is a kickboxing champion, a K1 champion, and she's going to be the better striker here. So as long as Andrea Lee doesn't show up with a singlet, this will be Antonina Shevchenko's fight for the taking.
100%, I agree with you on this one. Antonina Chefchenko. If you look at the competition Chefchenko has fought, I don't want to be disrespectful. If you look at the fights that she's won, is fights that she should win. Ariane Lipski, she beat her. Then she beat Lucy Paladura, she beat her. And then her losses against Roxanne Modafferi, she lost. And then Kate Shukagian, she lost. Every time she's made that, step up, I want to say in competition, she's fell short. But Andrea Lee is on a 3-fight losing streak against Joanna Collarwood, Lauren Murphy, and Roxanne Modafferi. So the best in division, but she's on a 3-fight losing streak, and she needs this win desperately because if she gets to that 4-fight losing skid, it could be game over. Her UFC career would potentially come to an end. But I think it might go that way. I think Shevchenko will be too much for her in the striking realm. I don't see Lee getting this one to the ground. She does her best work when she's striking. We've seen both women have problems in the wrestling department defensively, but I think Shevchenko will be too much for her in the striking. But it would be wise for Andrea Lee to get this one to the ground if she came out of a game plan and just wrestled. Yes, she's not very used to it, but it would be smart.
Yeah, it definitely would be smart. As I mentioned, Shevchenko does not have good takedown defense, which is why somebody who is coming from a Muay Thai background is probably going to be a favorable matchup for her because she's most comfortable on the feet. What happens in the Roxanne fight? She gets all of her cakes caught and she gets put on her back and she has nowhere to go. So who knows? Antonina Shevchenko could decide to take her down. She actually took Olivsky down and smashed her. So who knows what happens there? I don't think either one gets a finish here. This one definitely goes to the judges as well. And the next fight here is also a women's flyweight fight between Gina Mazzani and Priscilla Cachuera. As I mentioned, Gina Mazzani is the only 2-1 favorite on this card, and I believe it is not deserved at all. Her last win was, guess who? Just guess who? Just tell the people, Lenny. Tell the people.
Rachel Oshevitz, who's now fighting in BKFC.
4-5. That's a regional record, if you ask me. So that is inexcusable. And while she is a new fighter now, that she's working with her husband Tim Elliott over at James Krause's at Glory MMA, this is not going to be the fight that she's going to shine in because she does not react well to getting hit. Priscilla Cachoeira has no real technique behind her striking. It's just winging hooks and overhands. And I think she's going to catch her. She will lose the first round. Gina Mazzani will probably get the takedown in the first round and do some good work from the top. Probably just stay in half guard because, as we've seen before with Tim Elliott, he usually likes to do position over submission. So we're going to see Priscilla Cachoeira struggle whenever this goes to the ground. But when it's on the feet, I think Mazzani will always be in trouble. In the who was it that she fought that had her in real trouble? The Tough 28 winner. Oh my goodness,
you talking about
this
Gina?
is slipping moment. Yeah, Gina Mazzani. When she fought Macy. Yeah, when she fought Macy Chiasson, she is in the Julia Avila fight. She got kicked in the body. That's a fair loss there. But in the Macy Chiasson fight, somebody who's really huge just absolutely pummels her, and she just curls up and gives up on herself. In fact, after the Julia Avila fight, she quit on her career altogether. She was thinking of retiring, but James Krause convinced her to step out of retirement. And since then, she's only been Rachel Ostovich, which that really says nothing to me. So I'll go with Priscilla, who's not going to have a ton of technique. She's bad on the ground, but I actually think she might have a better gas tank here, maybe. And if she survives the grappling, she's probably going to catch her in the second round. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous that Priscilla is the biggest underdog on this card.
Wow, Oscar going off here on a rampage. But if you look at, Gina Mazzani, she's been cut from the UFC twice. Well, if we're including that, Ultimate Fighter, she lost there, then went to Alaska FC, came back, and then got cut after she got knocked out by Macy Chiesa, and then won on the regional scene, and then came back and then got knocked out again against Julia Avila, and then Rachel Oshevitz. She won that one ground and pound in the third round. And I think this is going to be the same story, in my opinion. I think she loses this fight, and I think she gets knocked out. I think Priscilla, if you saw Priscilla Chiara, if you look at her last fight, she absolutely shot the lights out of, was it Shana Dobson?
Yeah, Shannon Dobson, another one with a disgraceful record. So I'm not saying to bet Priscilla Cachoeira, but definitely don't bet on Gina Mazzani when she's that big of a favorite.
Don't bet on this fight either way. I think this fight could potentially go any way possible. But in my opinion, it's either a Priscilla Cachoeira knockout or a Gina Mazzani decision.
Absolutely. And this next fight is between two very talented featherweights. We have Kevin Aguilar fighting Tucker Lutz. Tucker Lutz had 2 appearances on the Contender Series last year, and he looked fairly impressive in both of them. I believe he only lost his debut, and he has not lost a fight since. And in the Contender Series fights, he was promising a finish to Dana White over and over again, and he failed to deliver in that department. To be fair, he is fighting some tough guys, but Tucker Lutz, he is unproven against the UFC level competition. That Kevin Aguilar, he's fought some really good guys. Barta Hugov, Charles Rosa. Those losses are really nothing to be ashamed about. Kevin Aguilar, he had a 17-1 record when he got signed by the UFC, which is kind of surprising because his style is not the safest style. He's a really he's the guy that likes to trade, and a guy that really likes to come forward, which puts himself in danger. And I think Tucker Lutz can probably out wrestle him as well. Tucker Lutz, he didn't get the finishes because he was fighting tough guys, but also because he doesn't take a lot of risks. And I think Kevin Aguilar does, and I don't think they'll pay off here. I think Tucker Lutz will put him on his back, and he'll probably get a decision here. This will be a very close fight. I think both guys will hurt each other on the feet, but in the end, Tucker Lutz is just going to have the smarter approach.
Mm-hmm. As you mentioned there, Kevin Aguilar, he's hitting a 3-fight losing streak against Charles Zabura, Tucker Gov, and Danny Ige. So there's no shame in them losses. Danny Ige is definitely putting a run for his money at the moment. And Charles Rosa, he's a great guy, great fighter. Tucker Lynch, 26 years old, 11-1, only lost his debut, then won 11 on the bounce. Would look to make a statement in his UFC debut, and I believe he will. I think this will be a good fight for Tucker Lynch. I think this is a good matchup for both men. As you mentioned, Aguilar likes to, take risks, stand in the pocket, trade some punches. I think that's the wrong idea with Tucker Lynch. I think Tucker Lynch will be shooting for the takedown, put him on his back, and then not looking for the submission, just controlling him there. This will be a game plan of his that I presume he would take in. But don't make that. Don't let me fool you. Tucker Lynch could definitely catch him clean and knock him out. He's got that power. He's got good boxing. He's well rounded. But I think he's just better than Kevin Aguilar in every department. I think Kevin Aguilar just gets into a wild fight too many times, and I think this is not gonna pay well for him in this fight. But who knows? In the time away, he could have worked on that. He might come in there. We've seen against Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje was all about entertaining fights. He came back, sorted that out, and then went patient. Kevin Aguilar could do the same thing, become patient, look to place his shots, and it could be a totally different Kevin Aguilar.
Yeah, if Shane Burgos and Edson Barbosa ends in a spectacular knockout, this could definitely take it as a fight of the night.
100%. Last fight of the card, and the first fight of the card making the walk. Sean Soriano versus Christian Jagos at 155 pounds. Both veterans in the game. Sean Soriano makes his return back to the UFC after winning 3 on the bounce in the regional scenes, and he looks to get his first win in the UFC too. He went 0-3 in his first stint, and now he looks to get a win against Christian Jagos, who also is going for a second win inside the UFC. Oh, more than second win. He's been in the UFC quite a long time. In his last fight, he got a win over Carlton Minus. That fight was, to me, is it made me laugh because I'm not too sure if you've seen the Vine, the video, and he goes, "My anus is bleeding," and I just thought of that the whole time.
Yeah. This will be a pretty fun fight here. Jagos, of course, is better on the ground here. Sean Soriano has been in the UFC in the past. He went 0-3 because he fought all talented grapplers, guy that was exposed his weakness. And I think Jagos can 100% do that. These are also 2 very talented strikers. This is actually a fight between 2 coaches. Sean Soriano is an assistant coach to Henry Hooft over at Sanford MMA. Talking about Sanford MMA, I'm going to include the interview with Darian Caldwell from, I believe it was a couple days ago. He's going to talk about the Chandler fight and his upcoming return to bantamweight. And Sean Soriano is a guy that has leveled up everyone striking in that gym. A lot of guys credit him besides Henry Hooft, and a lot of people say he's one of the most talented strikers. But as you said, a lot of guys compliment his striking, but do they compliment his ground game? No, they do not. He has a loss, a fairly recent loss, as you see right there, to Bruce Boyington, a 15-11 fighter on the regional circuit. So if you lose to a 15-11 fighter, I refuse to pick you, especially when your jiu-jitsu coach was Gilbert Burns. Jagos has a couple submissions on his record here too, and in the Carlton Minus fight, Carlton Minus couldn't have looked worse. That was some of the worst takedown defense I've seen in my entire life. That was Kevin Holland-esque. and Jagos will look to take this ground and safely coast to a decision here. But Sean Soriano does have a ton of pop on his punches, and he could always knock him out. Jagos did get knocked out by Josh Emmett in the third round, but Josh Emmett has legitimate dynamite in his hands.
Yeah, we know how much power he produces. You also got submitted by Charles Oliveira and had that close fight against Dracula Close. Not close fight, the unanimous decision against Dracula Close. But yeah, he's been around in the UFC for ages, a very, very long time, since 2018 to be exact. But he has fought before against Josh Emmett, as you mentioned, and in the UFC back in the day. He's Gilbert Burns is also beat Jagos, so this will be very good for Sean Soriano, because Gilbert Burns will be able to put the the experiences over to Sean Soriano. What he knew about Jagos, Sean Soriano will now know the same sort of thing. So that's very good for Sean Soriano, because he's got someone in his camp that can help him with this fight and break it down. And I think that's how it's going to go. I think Sean Soriano will get a knockout in this fight. He'll evade the takedown defense for about. I don't think it'll get to the second round. I think he catches him early, knocks him out, and gets his first win inside the UFC. Betting on the guy who's 0-3 inside the UFC, that's always risky. I definitely wouldn't recommend that. But I think Sean Soriano definitely gets this one. But it's a close fight. It could definitely go either way.
Sean Soriano's the talented striker. He's got a lot of pop in his punches, and that's a real possibility if he can keep this away from the ground. He actually helped Kamaru Usman. He was in quarantine with Kamaru Usman, helping him out for the Jorge Masvidal fight. And Jagos, he's a talented striker of his own. He actually coaches, I believe, a commentator on the UFC desk. So, yeah. Jagos might get pieced up here, because Sean Soriano is a very talented kickboxer, but Jagos probably grinds him out here for a safe decision here. But the fans could play a real factor in this fight. As we saw in the last card with fans, there was a ton of finishes, and the referees are kind of influenced by the fans. They like to break apart the fighters in, I guess you could say, boring sequences. So that's a real possibility there. It should be an exciting night of fights, Lenny, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting. Some great knockouts for sure. You got some entertaining fights. Lando Vanetta versus Mike Grundy. That's definitely going to produce. Shane Burgos versus Edson Barboza. Oh, my word. And then Tony Ferguson versus Beneil Dariush. And then obviously the top of the bill, the main event, Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira. It's going to be an absolute, blockbuster in event. If you thought the last event was good with fans, I think this one's definitely going to produce too.
Yeah, definitely could. Of course, it's going to be nearly impossible to beat the jaw-dropping moments from the last card. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, there's no Chris Weidman money on this card.
Oh, no, we don't want to see any of them.
Yeah, my best wishes to Chris Weidman. He went through unbelievable pain and all of that. So I hope we don't see that ever again. I actually saw a little clip from the regional circuit of that happening. You never want to see that.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate events. It can definitely impact a fighter's career. And Chris Weidman is expressed his interest that he wants to come back to MMA. So I credit him fighting on. Some willpower, some strength to do that. Because if that was me, I'd probably retire.
Sheesh, man. Yeah, I would probably never I would stay in a wheelchair for life if that was me, man. I would just not trust my leg again. And since then, Uriah Hall just got booked against Sean Strickland. And that was a matchup I called on the show. So a pat on the back to me there. So we'll call it here.
Mr. Oscar producers again. I told you, Sean Shelby McNeil, I'll give him a call. He needs a job.
Oh, definitely. I would love that job. That's probably my dream job, if you ask me.
Yeah, getting paid to, match make some fights. Yeah, they're in a better job than that.
Yeah, imagine those guys in that room when they put together Shane Burgos and Edson Barboza. I don't think that they could have had bigger smiles on their faces.
100%. So that's a wrap of UFC 262 goes down this weekend. Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. It's been a treat. Thank you, Oscar, for joining me. And I look forward to talking to you next week about the events that have happened this weekend.